Sports fans, NFL football fans. Welcome to the Time Out with Just Sports podcast with your man, the host, the one and only Jeffrey L. Mangum Jr. Hey, sports fans, football fans, NFL fans. Guess what? We are merely weeks away from the start of the 2022-2023 NFL football season. That's right. We're well into preseason football, but hey, some of y'all, if you're true football fans, you watch preseason games, but you don't take it very seriously. You just want to see like what your draft picks are going to do for your teams, what the undrafted rookie free agents are going to do on your football team, and you just kind of trying to predict who's going to make your team, whatever team you rep during the football season. Hey, I'm a Cowboy fan at heart, diehard Cowboy fan, as you must see behind me with all the Cowboy paraphernalia. But hey, I'm coming to you on this episode today of the Time Out with Just Sports podcast with my AFC playoff predictions. That's right. We're going to get into the AFC playoff predictions before the season kicks off. Hey, you tell me in the comment section below after you hear my AFC playoff predictions, who you think will make the playoffs in the AFC Conference this year. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now we're gonna go piggyback a little bit on last season's playoff picture and who made the playoffs in the AFC. So you get an idea of where we're going with this episode. Last season, we had none other than the Chiefs, the Steelers, the Bills, the Patriots, the Bengals, the Raiders, and the Titans. And as I was doing my research, I saw that the Titans were the number one seed in the AFC Conference. But we all know, ultimately, the Bengals made the playoffs behind Joe Burrow and that Cincinnati Bengal team that no one expected to make it. Hey, that was their first Super Bowl appearance since 1988 with the late great Ricky Dixon out of Wilma Hudson's High School. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the late Ricky Dixon, who was on that 88 Bengals Super Bowl appearance team in 1988. But hey, that was last season. And if you're a true sports fan, true football fan, you know from year to year, the playoff picture could change. You may have some of your regulars that continue to make it to the playoffs and make it to the as Bill Parcells, the big tuna used to say, the tournament. So you're going to have your regulars, and then you're going to have some surprise teams that make it, depending on how teams did in the offseason and in the draft. Hey, so I'm going to start off with the AFC East, and I'm going to tell you who's going to make the playoffs out of that AFC East. Well, like I said, last season, Buffalo made the playoffs. They won the East. The Patriots made the playoffs. Those are the two teams that made it out of that division. But this season, it's going to be AFC East will have the Buffalo Bills representing that division. And they're going to win the division. AFC East will have the Buffalo Bills coming out. They added Von Miller to that defense. They gave that man a lot of cash. Dollar bills, yo. Hey, and they still have one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL. So I'm picking the Bills to come out that division and win the East. In the AFC North, and this is a struggle. This was a struggle when I was jotting down my notes and just figuring out who would I pick out of the AFC North. Well, we all know Big Ben retired. The Steelers took a hit. We all know you still got Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. He's very dynamic and he can make something out of nothing happen. And then you got the Bengals, who are the defending AFC champions from last season. And then you got the Browns, who made headlines this offseason by trading for Deshaun Watson. And then also trading for none other than Amari Cooper from the Dallas Cowboys, only giving up a 5th-round pick. And you know, hey, they had that two-headed monster in the backfield. Even though I think it's Kareem Hunt who's requesting trade. But hey, as right now, they got that two-headed monster with the Browns. Well, now, they traded Baker Mayfield. They got rid of Baker Mayfield, Baker Maker. So, the Browns, you got the Bengals, you got the Ravens, you got the Steel Curtain. But just word came out, what, 2, 3 days ago, that Deshaun Watson has ultimately agreed to an 11-game suspension with a $5 million fine. So at first it was 6 games. And if you look at the schedule, I don't have it right here in front of me, but that first part of the schedule for 6 games, it wasn't a very hard schedule. It's those next few games that get a little bit hard. So right now, I have a question mark by the Browns, but I'm ultimately going to pick the Cincinnati Bengals to win that division and make the playoffs. So now we jump down to the AFC South. We had the Texans, the Colts, the Jags, and the Titans, who were the #1 seed last season in the AFC. Well, we know the Texans are not going nowhere. H-Town, stand up if you want to. Hey, however y'all do it, but y'all not going nowhere. Y'all lost Deshaun Watson. Y'all in the rebuild process. Hey, good luck with that. Keep building in the draft, accumulating those draft picks. Then you have the Colts. Then you got the Jags. The Jags, they got Trevor Lawrence. They may make some strides this season, but I don't foresee them making the playoffs. Then you have the Titans. Like I said, who was the #1 seed last season? They still had Ryan Tannehill, but even though Julio Jones didn't really produce for them like they thought he would, he was still there. Then you had AJ Brown, who they traded during the draft to the none other than Fly Eagle Fly Philadelphia Eagles. So they lost 2 of their receiving weapons. Now, could they still make the playoffs? Possibly. But out of the AFC South, I'm looking for the Indianapolis Colts to ultimately win that division with the additions of Matt Ryan, who has been to a Super Bowl before. And then on defense, they add a pretty good cornerback in Stephon Gilmore, along with that real nice defense that I already had. So hey, the Colts are coming out that division, in my opinion. Now, oh my God. Ooh. Hey, down here in Texas, we always talk about the District of Dooms or whatever these coaches like to call these districts when we're talking about high school football, man. Hey, we got that district where I'm just gonna step over to high school real quick. We got those DeSotos, those Duncanvilles, the Cedar Hills, and other worlds in the division all together, in the district all together. Now in the NFL, you got this division of doom. The AFC West is going to be the division of doom of NFL this season. You got the Broncos. You got the Chiefs. You got the Raiders. You got the Chargers. But that's not the half of it. The Broncos added Russell Wilson on offense, a Super Bowl quarterback. A Super Bowl quarterback. Just by adding him, you changed your franchise. And then they added, hey, even though a little upset that he left the Cowboys after they offered him the same contract, Randy Gregory on defense, along with all the other pieces that they already had with the Broncos. Then you got the Chiefs. You can't sleep on my man, Pat Mahomes. You can't sleep on Pat Mahomes. I know they lost the cheetah in the offseason, but hey, you talking about Andy Reid, one of the greatest offensive minds to ever call a playbook. And you got Patrick Mahomes, so you can't count him out. Then you got the Raiders, who was in the playoffs last season. You know, off that they had to win that last game. Actually, they could have tied with the Chargers. They had an opportunity to tie and both teams go to the playoffs. But you know, that pride kicked in and the Raiders ultimately made the playoffs. So they made the playoffs with Derek Carr. And then in the offseason, one of the biggest trades to ever hit NFL news. My man, Devontae Adams, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, joins his college teammate, Derek Carr, with the Las Vegas Raiders. Oh, my God. This man got a weapon now. He has a true #1 weapon to throw to. He made the playoffs last season. And he got a true #1 weapon. There's no telling what this boy could do now with his buddy, Devontae Adams. Then the Chargers. Ooh-wee. They already had us up and coming Justin Herbert. Oh, then they add to that defense to go with the Bosa brother. Then they added Khalil Mack. Then they added with J.C. Jackson in the secondary just to go along with that other pieces of that tremendous defense. That AFC West is gonna be daunting. It's gonna be salivating like you eating a greasy cheeseburger from one of those, as I like to call them, dirty burger places. That AFC West is gonna be a beast. Whoever comes out of that deserves to wear the division crown. They said you got the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders, the Chargers. Now, out of that division last season, you had the Chiefs and Raiders make it. Now, I went out on a limb, and people may think I'm crazy, but I want you to comment in the comment section below and tell me what you think. But I'm going with that whole division to make the playoffs. I'm going with 4 teams to make the playoffs out of that AFC West. All 4 teams will make the playoffs. I know what you're saying. It's only 7 teams that make it. And that's what happens when you added 7 teams to the playoffs. Because of course, your division winners automatically make the playoffs. And I think eventually, a lot of people have said, sports fans, that they wish that the NFL would just go with the best records. And hey, sometimes that should be the case. Because if y'all remember years back when the Seattle Seahawks with my man Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson made the playoffs at 7-9. Now they did win the first round game. They did win the first round game against the New Orleans Saints, but they were 7-9 and made the playoffs. So I think eventually, as time go on, maybe not in the near future, NFL is probably going to go to just the best records, the 7 best records to make the playoffs. But right now, we're going to do a recap. These are the playoff pictures that I predict for the AFC. The Bills out of the AFC East. The Bengals out of the North. Out of the South, you got the Colts. Out of the AFC West, you got that whole division making the playoffs. The Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Chargers. Now, like I said, I had a question mark by the Browns. And the reason why I put a question mark by the Browns was because I believe if Deshaun Watson wasn't suspended for 11 games, they would take one of those playoff spots with the weapons he's going to have and that defense that would be able to carry the Browns. But I'm going to say this, sports fans. If by the time Deshaun Watson comes off of his suspension and they are in the playoff picture, watch out. Watch out. If they're in the playoff picture when he comes off suspension, I believe the Browns can take one of those playoff spots and somebody from the AFC West may not make it. And if I had to take a choice, I would probably say maybe the Chiefs, because they lost some pieces. They lost Tyron, Honey Badger, Matthew, and then they lost Cheetah on offense. So if the Browns in the playoff picture, I could see them taking one of those other spots. Hey, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Hey, well, like I said, you've been listening to the Time Over Just Sports podcast with your man, the one and only, the host, Jeffrey L. Mangum Jr. Hey, I brought you my AFC playoff predictions. Hey, before I go, hey, let's recap. The Bills, the Bengals, the Colts, the Broncos, the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Chargers. And a question mark by the Cleveland Browns. Hey, tune in next time because I will be coming to you with my NFC Conference playoff predictions. Hey, don't forget to hit the big red subscribe button. Comment and tell me who you think will make the playoffs. And hey, tell me if you think my predictions are on point. I would like to hear from you, sports fans, football fans. Hey, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Until next time, be easy. I love you and peace.